to take a shot towards the end zone. Underthrown, touchdown! Trey Tucker to the end zone it goes! Caught! Touchdown, Armand Benz!
Bearcat Blitz, fresh episode coming your way right now on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Heltman. He's my co-host, Neil Meyer of the FrontOfficeNews.com, Cincinnati Rivals affiliate. Of course, I am with Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. You can check out the show on our YouTube page, Talking Cats with Russ Heltman, and on wherever you get your podcasts, whatever podcast feeds you subscribe to, whether that's Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon, all available to check out Bearcat Blitz there. Loaded show for you all today. We have an Arizona State preview on the gridiron amidst a big position change for the Sun Devils leading into this contest. Position change they are not wanting to make, but having to make due to a big shakeup at their best and most important position. Maybe not their best position, but the most important position in the sport. We'll get to that after we discuss Cincinnati Bearcats basketball and the ranking in the AP poll. It happened just an hour or two after Neil and I finished recording on Monday, excuse me. And then we will also get to the charity exhibition event on Friday and the kind of chances that this becomes maybe a regular season, more regular affair between Cincinnati and Ohio State. Before we do all that, I want to tell you about Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA, to political props. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online. The game starts here. Neil, we'll start with the AP poll ranking, and then we'll get to the chances we see Ohio State and Cincinnati match up in the future. It seems like they are much higher going into this weekend than maybe a weekend in years past, or this time last year or before that, given that they've only faced, I think, really one time in this century, 2018, 2019, the only real time that they've faced off between the two programs. And it's something that if we can't make it happen in football, we should definitely be able to make it happen more often in basketball. We'll get to that, though, after we talk about the 20th overall ranking for UC in the AP Top 25, Neil. This is kind of right around where you and I projected. I had them being ranked 22nd. That was my prediction going into the week, and they are at number 20 overall with Arkansas Pine Bluff on the horizon in just about a little over 2 weeks' time. First time that Cincinnati's been ranked in the AP poll since finishing 24th in the final poll during the 2018-2019 season. And they're actually 17th, as we mentioned, in Ken Palm's rankings, the analytics site that a lot of people trust in the sport. A lot of Big 12 teams in the top 10 of this ranking, Neil. It seems like the league will once again be just as tough, if not even tougher at the top of the league, and then maybe a little bit easier at the bottom, but not necessarily nothing close to the doldrums that were in the AAC at the bottom of that conference when UC played there.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And I think this is right where you and I both projected Cincinnati to be heading into the season with the first AP poll. You come in ranked number 20th. I think this is the first time, if I remember right, that they were ranked in the preseason AP poll since 2012. So overall, that's a huge jump there for Cincinnati. But last time they were ranked there was the final AP poll, like you mentioned, in the 2018 to 2019 season. But Russ, like we talked about, this is where we kind of predicted them anywhere from that 18 to 22 range, and they end up at 20. They're ahead of Xavier, who is outside the top 25, but not far looking in. I think they were ranked close to 28th or so. But overall, it's going to be a daunting conference. I mean, you look at the first AP poll, Russ, 5 of the Big 12, 16 teams are top 10. So, I mean, you have Houston at 1, you have Kansas in there as well, or Kansas at 1, Houston's in there, Baylor's up there. There's a lot of good teams in this conference, as many people know. Iowa State's up there again as well. So Arizona, I believe, is the other top 10. So you look around, and this conference it's just as tough, if not tougher, than what it was in recent years. Because you look at the KenPom ratings, obviously Cincinnati came in 17th in KenPom, was projected to finish 6th in the preseason coaches poll. And where was Cincinnati ranked among Big 12 teams in the KenPom ratings? The 6th Big 12 team. So it correlates together there with what the coaches poll had. But overall, Russ, I think this is where you and I and many others projected them to be. Now it's going to be interesting come Friday night, see what really transpires. And obviously this is an Ohio State team that underwent a complete roster rebuild. They land Sean Stewart. You bring Michi Johnson back. On top of it, you have Bruce Thornton returning. And then you bring in Aaron Bradshaw from Kentucky. I mean, overall, Jake Diebler's done a fantastic job on down there or up there in Columbus with Ohio State. So Friday's going to be a test to really kind of see if Cincinnati lives up to those expectations of being a preseason top 20 team.
Yeah, who was Stewart was the guy you and I were keying in on in the offseason, with him being interested in both Cincinnati and Ohio State. Will be cool to see him in action against the Bearcats on Friday night. Just going to be cool to see how this entire roster comes together and whether or not they really are a potential dark horse Final Four candidate, like NCAA.com's Andy Katz labeled them as, with the top 10 dark horse candidates ranking from him coming out earlier this week. Cincinnati at number 10 on that list. And Neil, it's caused some shakeups in the markets. I was talking last week about how it made no sense to me that Caesar Sportsbook had Cincinnati at 300-1 to win the NCAA title. Utah State has 300-1 odds to win NCAA title. They have zero chance to win the NCAA basketball tournament title. UC actually has a shot. There's actually a more than non-zero chance that they win the title, and having the same odds at that has since been updated. They have been moved to 200-1 on Caesars, which is probably the best number you're going to get in the market. Just goes to show, sharper sports books like the one representing our show, betonline.ag, they got Cincinnati at 50-1, not even close to 200-1 to win the NCAA basketball title. So just shows that there's a bunch of different numbers out there right now. But honestly, most of the sports books are aligned with BetOnline, where they're having Cincinnati in the 100-1 to 50-1 range. And they're getting a lot of respect from BetOnline right now, as they should going into this season. Very, very interesting to see how Cincinnati starts off. Can they get momentum going early, unlike they've been able to do in other years past, and maybe notch those signature wins earlier on, as opposed to having to scratch for them late in the year and not having enough of the signature wins to get in the tournament? I obviously think they do, because I think they're going to be a top 15 team by the end of the season, maybe top 10 once we enter the tournament, given the amount of talent they have and just the amount of depth they have, if it stays healthy, which is obviously the biggest caveat for any college basketball team. A ton of excitement around the Bearcats going into the season at number 20 overall, going up against an unranked entering the season Ohio State team this Friday. And Neil, it sounds like there's a chance that we get more of these events, definitely a strong chance of this exhibition series, this kind of in-state 2 weeks before the season exhibition game to go towards a charitable contribution type of outfit continuing. I think we will definitely see that continue, but will we see Cincinnati and Ohio State play in the future in real counting contests in the regular season? It seems a lot more likely today than it did maybe last week or weeks before that, given the comments from Jake Diebler and Wes Miller, notably Wes saying, quote, "If people want to see this game continue and see it grow into something bigger, then support it." Continuing here, come out and show us that. And I think that would do a lot for the people that make decision well above Jake and I's head, right? The administrators and people that make decisions. If fans are really excited about these four programs playing against one another and want to see that sometime down the road in a regular season, come support this. And I think that would be something down the road that is possible. He noted they're already playing Dayton in a second in consecutive years here. So, Neil, it's clear that Wes Miller understands the importance of these in-state contests, especially these in-state contests that you can work into your non-conference schedule and not only give your fans something really excited and some sort of other rivalry to key in on besides the Xavier rivalry and the Big 12 rivalries, but also you're sharpening your team even more. And you're getting those sharpened opportunities, Neil, without having to go to For example, Villanova on the road this year, take a big road trip in that sense. You're able to go to some of these closer venues and not have to expend all those travel dollars, all that time missing class, all that stuff that traveling on the road for a college basketball team can interrupt. You can get it done a lot more efficiently if these contests can start becoming more regular occurrences, which they've already started under Wes Miller. He's done a great job assessing this and addressing this by getting Dayton into the fold in the third year of his tenure.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And I think it's a great thing that you mentioned that, because Wes Miller and Jake Diebler both mentioned yesterday that this game right now, the focus is on the charity exhibitions and bringing the mental health awareness to this game, because they get that one charity game a year. But for them this year, the reason it ended up as a charity game was because Cincinnati already had Dayton on the schedule. They already had Xavier on the schedule. So overall, those games were already mentioned or already scheduled in the non-conference slate. But overall, Russ, I think this is a great opportunity. Obviously, Wes Miller has done nothing but embrace this community since he's been arrived in Cincinnati. He's one that's really stood out in the community, made an effort to get out in the community and really make an effort. But shout out to Jake Diebler for setting this up. For many who don't know, we talked about it early.
Yeah, he was the catalyst. He started the snowball down the hill, so to speak.
So he got all four coaches on a conference call between Xavier with Sean Miller, Dayton's Anthony Grant, Wes Miller, and Jake Diebler himself. So overall, you get all four coaches on a call in hopes of making this a charity game in the future. The original discussion was having this maybe be all under one building and doing a doubleheader, which, Russ, that would be fantastic. I mean, I'm all in for that.
I would love this to become it definitely could become an MTE, multi-team event.
It definitely could. And the great thing about that
right there.
The great thing about it is you look down, and I mean, all schools are within an hour and a half of each other. So that's a huge thing there. But Jake Diebler really kind of stated that he would look forward to maybe having that matchup in the regular season, but they don't want to lose focus on the bigger priority here, and that is spreading the mental health awareness. And I thought that was a really cool aspect to hear, because obviously Diebler being from Ohio, I actually got to ask him about how this all came together and his thoughts on his message as a coach for the mental health aspect, where he said, I got to see how impactful this event was last year when we played Dayton. Both programs were able to keep the main thing, which was to raise some real awareness and resources to support the communities in the mental health space. To have the opportunity to bring all four of these programs together to enhance this opportunity, it would have been foolish not to try and embrace the opportunity. All four programs are on board to continue find ways to support this. However, the original thought was, all right, let's get all four teams under one roof and potentially make this a doubleheader. However, it wasn't able to happen that way with the time frame we were working with. Now, if there's an avenue to do that in the future, great. It won't only impact the basketball community, but most importantly, it would be impactful for the mental health and the resources we have here in the state of Ohio and our communities. That right there says a lot in the kind of person that Jake Diebler is. But on top of it, Russ, sounds like there was discussions that they maybe wanted to play 60 minutes on Friday night, which is even better. But the NCAA shot that down. So overall, a lot of different things to take into consideration. But man, a regular season game versus Ohio State every year would be pretty cool in my opinion. Because Russ, for those who remember, the last time Ohio State and UC played was the Maui Invitational 2 years ago. So overall, it would be great to see this become a rivalry every year and a matchup where Cincinnati and Ohio State fans can come together and really collaborate. Maybe spread that mental health awareness too. Keep that main thing the main thing, like Jake Diebler said. But overall, to have that a regular season matchup, that'd be fantastic in the regular season.
We'll see if it can happen in the future. Taking a quick break here on Bearcat Blitz, but first I want to tell you about Cherry Bundy Recovery Drinks. Got one in my hand right now. It is pure 100% tart cherry juice, and this particular package, an 8-ounce post-workout bottle. Take a full dose or a half dose at 4 ounces, and it's pure cherry juice, guaranteed to reduce soreness, increase recovery, or found to have reduced soreness and increase recovery in multiple studies. Contains naturally occurring melatonin to help improve sleep, help support immunity, and it is trusted by professionals and collegiate professionals alike. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions recover with Cherry Bundy tart cherry juice. Every team playing in Europe or Brazil this season in the NFL ranks had Cherry Bundy with them. 66 of the 67 power conference teams in the college football ranks use Cherry Bundy, including Cincinnati football and Cincinnati basketball. and that includes every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007 has been recovering with Cherry Bundy. Go to cherrybundi.com. That's CHERIBUNDI.com. Or you can pick it up at retailers nationwide, including Publix and Kroger. It's available to order on Amazon as well. But if you go through their website, you can actually get a discounted subscription ordering package to put together, and that will help you save a little bit of money as opposed to some other outlets. So check out Cherry Bundy tart cherry juice. It's really, really tasty, honestly. You might think, tart cherry juice, what? That doesn't sound very appealing. I thought the same thing, and then I put my lips to it. I got my taste buds on it. It tastes really good. I've been using it since we set up this partnership with Cherry Bundy to recover after my workouts, and I can definitely feel a difference, and especially feel a difference kind of the next day after you've used or taken a Cherry Bundy supplement. Cherrybundi.com, CHERIBUNDI.com, or available at retailers nationwide, including Publix and Kroger. Taking a quick break, and then we're getting to the Arizona State preview here on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, Arizona State coming to town this weekend for the homecoming matchup at Nippert Stadium. It's the 98th homecoming affair for Cincinnati. They entered this game as a 61.3% matchup predictor favorite on ESPN, and what will be, they're hoping, a third consecutive win over Arizona State dating back to 1976 and 1954. So obviously been a while since Cincinnati and ASU have squared off. The Bearcats enter this game 4-2 overall, while the Sun Devils are the surprise story, along with probably BYU. Thank you for mentioning that last week, Neil, of the season in the Big 12, 5-1 overall. They have already eclipsed their season-long betting win total at all those sports books out there. And it prompted a funny quote from Kenny Dillingham after the game, saying that he's congrats everybody, all the ASU fans, for winning their season-long win total bet, and asked if they could pitch a little bit of those winnings back into the Arizona State collective. So always looking for more wins and more success here in the sport of college football. Don't know if it'll come the Arizona State Sun Devils way this weekend, though, Neil, as Sam Leavitt is out for this game, 44th best quarterback in the country by ESPN's QBR metric, and it's prompted the betting spread to climb from 2.5 points in favor of the Bearcats to 6.5 points in favor of Cincinnati. We'll start this preview on the offensive side of the ball, Neil, and get to what I think will be the more impactful side of the game on defense in just a little bit. To me, the biggest key to this one is, can you get Brendan Sorsby back on track? I paused there a little bit because I'm not necessarily thinking he's off track. Last week was his second worst game statistically as a Bearcat in terms of overall efficiency, just behind or just ahead of the Miami game from a few weeks ago. But I would say, Neil, it was his worst game overall because he didn't turn the ball over in the Miami game, but he committed two kind of pretty definitively his fault turnovers in the game against UCF with those two interceptions. Arizona State does not allow other teams to run the ball very consistently, and UC hasn't run the ball consistently at all in conference play. They're yet to hit 4 yards per carry in this window of conference play so far. And given how Sorsby kind of bounced back in the second half last week, was able to ultimately grind through the game and continue to work the ball to his most successful targets and guys getting open the most in Joe Royer and Tony Johnson, I think he will bounce back in this one and be able to keep the ball away from a defense that's forced 6 interceptions this season. That's 39th nationally and has ultimately been much better against the run than the pass. 11th in EPA per rush, 35th in success rate allowed on the ground versus a 40th ranking nationally in EPA per dropback and a 71st ranking in dropback success rate to opposing teams. This defense can be had. I think they can be had at the second and third levels. If Brendan Sorsby is more accurate in this game, I see it being very difficult for Arizona State's defense to ultimately handle all of the passing game weapons Cincinnati's going to have, unless they are able to make Brendan Sorsby in this offense completely one-dimensional. They have to throw it 45, 50-plus times in this one to even move the ball because the run game is so bad. I don't see that necessarily being the case. I think they'll be able to get, especially in late down scenarios, the run game to work better than it did in late down scenarios last week, given that Arizona State is 84th nationally on defense and 3rd and 4th down success rate this season. Those money downs, I think, is where the run game can be leaned on a little bit more here, and they're going to be able to be successful in that front just enough. I think they get around 4 yards per carry, maybe eclipse it for the first time this season. But the pass game is what I think will drive this win for the Bearcats if they're able to get the job done. I think it's going to come by way of Brendan Sorsby taking care of the football and being much more accurate and kind of buttoned up than he was last week.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. Obviously, the key is to get Brendan Sorsby back on track after the UCF game where he threw those 2 costly interceptions, left some points on the board there versus down there in Orlando. But I think the biggest focus there for Cincinnati is to get that passing game going, because once you get that going, obviously the run game will open up. Corey Kiner just had his lowest performance game of the season, under 100 yards down there in Orlando, despite the Texas Tech game, which he left for an injury. So hopefully they get that run game back going between Corey Kiner and Evan Pryor and Manny Covey there in the fold as well. But overall, I think if you get Brendan Sorsby back on track, Russ, I think if the passing game starts to open up on Saturday, it's going to open up a lot of different things for the Cincinnati offense. And it could really give Arizona State some trouble. It really could, because you're looking down at the metrics right now, Russ. Arizona State is 9th in the conference in total defense. They're allowing just about 214 yards per game. So you look down. Yes, they have the 6 interceptions, which is about middle of the conference right there. They gave up almost 1,300 yards in the season, but they gave up an average of 6.3 yards per play. So overall, they are a relentless defense. They do get pressure, however, but it's going to be interesting to see how does a veteran offensive line for Cincinnati that is expected to have D'Artagnan Tinsley back for this one. So you get the bolster back up there on the offensive line. I think this is the first game back, Russ, all season where Cincinnati is projected to have their full starting line all season, right?
Yeah, they're kind of the full 6-man unit down to Philip Wilder or DeAndre Buford being that swing piece, whichever one they want to throw out there for more snaps.
Yeah, so it's the first time that's available to them this season. Obviously, D'Artagnan Tinsley missed the last 3 games with the injury sustained versus Miami, but it looks like he'll be good to go this weekend. So overall, it's going to be interesting. Does Arizona's defensive line really find a way to pressure Brendan Sorsby there with a veteran offensive line? Obviously, when you look at Arizona State's defense, Justin Watley, former Cincinnati Bearcat, is expected to play on Saturday after missing the big win over Utah. It's safe to say that he wouldn't miss this game for just about anything if people had to kind of bet on that aspect. But it's going to be interesting. Do they get pressure to Brendan Sorsby? If this defense gets pressure to Brendan Sorsby, it could be a defensive showing on Saturday. However, I don't expect that to really happen. I expect the passing game to be open. I expect Brendan Sorsby, Joe Royer, and Xavier Henderson to have 2 other big games. And heck, Russ, I mean, the way Tony Jefferson looked last week in Orlando could be hitting his stride right at the right time too. So overall, Cincinnati's offense could be continuing to hit that. If they can hit that stride that they were hitting before the bye week and find a way to get back into that rhythm, could be a good start and a good win for Cincinnati on Saturday if offense gets going. But Arizona State sitting at 28th in the latest AP polls. They were receiving votes, just 3 teams out of the top 25, but it's a big challenge at their hands on Saturday.
Tony Johnson, his come up has been huge over the past few weeks. Just his ability to be that third receiving option, knowing that teams are going to key in on Hendo, knowing that they're going to they've been giving him kind of close to Jamar Chase cloud coverage a little bit over the past couple of weeks, just saying, we're not going to let Xavier Henderson beat us. You're going to have to beat us with underneath stuff, and you're going to have to beat us with Tony Johnson or the likes of Joe Royer and that such. Plus, the running backs are getting some more touches out of the backfield in terms of passing game this season as well. So that's been nice to see from the Cincinnati Bearcats offense. Arizona State comes into this game ranked 39th nationally, tied for 38th nationally with 14 sacks on the season. See if Justin Watley and co can get to Brendan Sorsby. UCF did an okay job of that when they have 2 sacks last week on Sorsby and a couple of pressures, one in particular that I think ended up leading to an interception. So that's definitely something that Cincinnati has to key in on. And a good note from Neil there, they will have their full allotment of offensive linemen to be able to mix and match and find that best combination from the 5-man unit. on Saturday. Flipping to the offensive side of the ball for Arizona State and their new quarterback, Jeff Sims. After this on Bearcat Blitz. All righty, Neil. This is the side of the ball where I think Cincinnati can either turn this into a close game and ultimately a close loss that would look pretty bad given the quarterback situation Arizona State is coming in with, or they could honestly dominate the entire 60 minutes with this unit and end up winning by 20, 25 plus points. Sam Levitt out of this game with injury. Enter Jeff Sims in this contest. Career 31 to 29 TD to interception ratio. Has, I think, 5. This is his 5th year of college experience, having been at, where was he at? Georgia Tech.
Years. Yeah, he spent 3 years at Georgia Tech and then Nebraska last year.
Yeah, Nebraska last year as well. Guy's been around for a while, came in to compete for the job, lost it to Sam Levitt, and kind of doesn't really surprise me that he lost it given his history at the position. 57.6% passer, 682 attempts, like I mentioned, 31 to 29 touchdown interception ratio, kind of like a 7 yards per attempt average. And then he also averages 4 yards on the ground, has consistently run the football in his career. So I expect a lot of read option in this game. I expect a lot of QB running, a lot of Cam Scatabo, who we'll get to in just a second. Neil, they only threw the ball 25.3 times per game with Sam Levitt, a guy who was a top 50 quarterback at his position. And now you're going to Jeff Sims, who has only thrown 2 passes this year. And I don't think I'm going out on a limb and saying he is not a top 50 player, maybe not a top 100 quarterback in college football right now. Enter Cam Scatabo. They're going to rely on this guy even more than they've relied on him, which has been a ton so far this season. You could argue, Neil, this is the most physical, best downhill rusher of the football that Cincinnati has faced in the Scott Satterfield era. He's right up there with Ollie Gordon II in terms of the difficulty this matchup is going to provide for Cincinnati. Ollie Gordon, I would put a little tick above Scatabo, but Scatabo's no slouch. 5th nationally with 128.8 yards per game, 8 touchdowns on the ground, and he's going up against a defense in Cincinnati that has not given up the big play very often this year, Neil, on the ground, but they're getting shredded down to down with short pinprick type of rushes. When you think about them being 88th in defensive rushing success rate and 21st in EPA per rush allowed. Missed tackles, once again, the theme in this game for me. If they can find a way to gang tackle Cam Scatabo, keep him between 4.5 to 5 yards per carry, force late down long situations for Jeff Sims to throw the football in, then they should win this game by 10 plus points, in my opinion. I just don't see how they're going to be able to work the ball down the field and consistently trust their passing game in this one, especially if they get down early and they're having to go away from the run with Cincinnati getting off to a good start. So the fact that Cam Scatabo is so physical, he brings a similar kind of tackle breaking ability, although he's just going to run through you instead of an RJ Harvey who can kind of dance around you a little bit more. 17 missed tackles against Texas Tech, just 9 against UCF for Cincinnati. Neil, that's the big number for me. We said last week going into the game, if they miss less than 10 tackles against UCF, they should have an awesome chance to win the game. That's exactly what happened. The defense did just enough to pull off the victory, and they can kind of key in on that stat again. If they can force Cam Scatabo to the ground consistently, force less than 10 missed tackles from him and the rest of this offense overall, then they should be in a great position to limit possessions for Arizona State, make sure they have to work the ball progressively, shortly, and long drives down the field, and keep those explosives away, which they've done over the past few weeks in conference play. Missed tackles, the big one to watch, though. Got to gang tackle Cam Scatabo, the 5'11", 215-pound bowling ball missile rolling through gaps.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I mean, you talk about Cam Scatabo and the missed tackle opportunities. Guys, this is a guy who leads the country in missed tackles with 49, ahead of Boise State, ahead of Boise State's running back, and essentially the leading vote getter right now, the leading candidate for the Heisman.
Mr. 200 a week, Ashton Jency.
So, I mean, overall, this is a guy, he's gonna bury you. He's going to try and run through you. Everybody knows that. 5'11", 215, 220 pounds, 773 yards on the ground right now. Guys, Arizona State does not pass the ball. They are running the ball 61% of the time on offense.
108th nationally in attempts overall.
And with Jeff Sims at quarterback, let's be honest, Russ, they're going to run the ball. Cam Scatterbo is going to get 30 touches a game, whether it's as the run him running or they're going to drop it off to him. He's going to have a combined 30 touches on Saturday. Everyone can kind of see this one coming from a mile away. However, do not let him make you miss one-on-one. If you miss him one-on-one, he's going to make you pay. You got to have all hats to the ball, like Scott Satterfield said last week heading into UCF. If you can do that again, great. That's a great opportunity and a great day for Cincinnati. But you cannot let Cam Scatterbo get loose and get to the second level, or it could be a dangerous, dangerous day for Cincinnati. But on top of it, the offense, there's not much outside of it. Outside of Sam Leavitt could throw the ball a little bit. He could spin it. But Jeff Sims has really struggled throughout his career at that quarterback position. Because, Russ, when you look back to Jeff Sims during his time at Georgia State, what did he do that really put him on the map? Boom. Hand it off to Jahmyr Gibbs when he was at Georgia Tech. I mean, look at it. Yeah, he played with arguably the best back in college football in recent years. So, on top of it, I think it's just going to be the same way. He's just going to hand it off to Cam Scatterbo and see what they do. But Cincinnati, if they have another a relentless defensive showing like they had down in Orlando, and shout out to Tyson Vite for dialing up the pressure, I think this is a game where they load the box and they make Jeff Sims beat you with his arm. Flat out, you're going to load the box. You're going to try and stop Cam Scatterbo. Everybody knows that. But now that you see the switch at quarterback, it's going to be interesting. Does Cincinnati turn that pressure up just a little bit more like we saw in the UCF game? Do we see another big game from Jarrett Bartlett? Do we see another big game from Jake Golday? Do we see one of these safeties come in? Antoine Peak's been playing very well. Can Cincinnati force Jeff Sims into not one, but 2 turnovers? That's where I'm going with, Russ. Cincinnati can force Jeff Sims to 2 turnovers this weekend in the passing game. Cincinnati wins this game by 10 to 14 points.
I'm rolling 30-20, Neil, in favor of the Bearcats, picking them once again here. And if they get the job done, they will be 1 win away from securing bowl eligibility in the second season of the Scott Satterfield era. I just think that they're going to have too much offensive firepower. The defense, like you mentioned, great point there. I think it's a great idea to dial up the pressure early, get off to a good start, maybe force some turnovers in their end of the field, be able to stack some points early and force them to make a decision. Do we keep running Cam Scattergo, or do we try to make Jeff Sims the hero here and midst a 14 to 17 point early deficit? I could very much see that playing out that way. 30-20 is what I'm rolling with, Neil. What do you got before we get out of here?
I got 34-24 in favor of Cincinnati. Here on homecoming weekend, Bearcats fans will be rocking. Sounds like Nippert Arena is about 200 tickets away from a sellout. Pack the Nip, defend the Nip. I got the Bearcats 34-24.
We did not plan that scoring margin right there. 10 points in favor of the Bearcats for Neil and myself, Russ Heltman. We'll be back at it on Monday after homecoming weekend to recap the exhibition and recap a big, Big 12 affair at home for the Bearcats against Arizona State. First time they've ever played the Sun Devils inside of Nippert Stadium. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play.